I buried 7 children. 7. Out of 13 I carried, only 6 lived to see their 10th birthday. People today, they don't understand what that means. They hear the number and they think they understand, but they don't. They can't. Unless you've wrapped a tiny buddy in linen, unless you've felt the weight of a child's coffin, lighter than it should be, always lighter than it should be, unless you've stood over grave after grave after grave, each one smaller than a grown person's. You can't know. You can't know what it does to you, what it takes from you, how it changes everything about who you are and how you see the world. I'm 87 years old now, born in 1816, February, in Massachusetts. I've lived a long life, longer than most. I've seen things change, seen the world move forward, but there's one thing that hasn't changed, one thing that still sits in my chest like a stone. The children, my children, the ones who didn't make it, the ones I couldn't save. My name is Sarah Miller, though I was Sarah Blackwood before I married. I grew up in a small town outside Boston. My father was a blacksmith. Good work, steady work. We had enough. Not rich, but we never went hungry. I was the oldest of 9 children. 4 of my siblings died before they turned 5. 1 at 6 months, 1 at 2 years, 1 at 3, 1 at 4. That was normal. That was just how things were. Every family lost children. Every family. You'd go to church on Sunday and look around at the other families and you just knew that half those children wouldn't live to grow up. You could see it in the mothers' faces, that weariness, that fear, the way they held their babies just a little tighter, knowing that any day could be the day they lost them. When I was young, maybe 8 or 9, I asked my mother why so many babies died, why God took them. She was kneading bread, her hands covered in flour, and she just stopped moving, and looked at me. Her eyes were so tired, so old, even though she was only maybe 30 then. She said, God doesn't take them, Sarah. They just die. Their bodies are too weak. The world is too hard for them, and there's nothing we can do about it. That was it. No comfort, no explanation that made sense. Just the plain truth. Babies died, children died, and mothers buried them and went on, because what else could you do? You couldn't stop having children. You needed children to work, to help with the farm, to take care of you when you got old. So you had them, knowing that maybe half would die, maybe more. You had them anyway. I married when I was 19. Thomas Miller, a farmer, good man, hard-working. We married in April 1835. I was pregnant by June. That first pregnancy, I was so happy, so full of hope. I didn't think about the children who died, didn't think about my siblings, about all the tiny graves in the churchyard. I thought my baby would be different. I thought I'd be careful enough, loving enough that my baby would live. That's what you think when you're young and pregnant for the first time. You think your love will be enough to keep them safe. You think if you just do everything right, if you're just careful enough, your baby won't be one of the ones who dies. You're wrong, but you don't know that yet. My first baby, a boy, was born in February 1836. We named him James after Thomas's father. He was beautiful, perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, loud cry, good strong lungs. He nursed well, slept well. For 3 months, everything was fine. Everything was perfect. I thought I'd been right. I thought my baby was going to be one of the ones who lived. Then in May, he got a fever, just a fever. Started in the morning. By afternoon, he was burning up. By evening, he was having convulsions. By midnight, he was dead, 3 months old. We buried him the next day in the churchyard, in the section for infants. There were so many graves there, so many tiny stones, so many babies. I remember standing there, holding Thomas's hand, looking at all those graves and thinking, this is my life now. This is what it means to be a mother. You have babies and you bury them. I was 20 years old. After James died, I got pregnant again almost immediately. That was how it worked. You lost a baby, you had another one, you didn't wait, you didn't take time to grieve, You just kept going, kept having babies, because you needed living children, and the only way to get living children was to have as many as possible and hope some survived. My second baby, Mary, was born in January 1837. She lived 2 years, got sick in the winter, some kind of cough that wouldn't go away, coughed and coughed until she couldn't breathe anymore. Died in my arms. I remember her last breath. Remember the way her little body just stopped, just went still. Remember the weight of her, suddenly heavier, like death added weight instead of taking it away. We buried her next to James. 2 graves now, 2 children gone. Then came Elizabeth in 1838. She lived 6 weeks, just 6 weeks. Wouldn't eat, couldn't keep anything down. Just got smaller and smaller, weaker and weaker, until one morning she didn't wake up. Then William in 1839. He lived 4 months. Fever took him, same as James. Then Catherine in 1840. She was stillborn, never took a breath. I labored for 18 hours, and she came out blue and silent and perfect and dead. They told me it was God's will. The midwife, the minister, my mother, they all said the same thing. It's God's will. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. You'll have more children. You're young. You'll have more. Like the children I'd lost didn't matter, like they were replaceable, like losing 5 babies in 5 years was just normal, just expected, just something you accepted and moved on from. By 1841, I was 25 years old, and I buried 5 children. 5. I was pregnant again with my 6th. I didn't let myself hope anymore. Didn't let myself imagine a future with that baby. Didn't name her in my head. Didn't make plans, didn't dream about what she'd be like. I just carried her, felt her move inside me, and waited to see if she'd live or die. That's what it did to you, losing so many. It made you hard, made you protect yourself. You couldn't love them fully while they were babies because the pain of losing them was too great. You had to hold something back, keep something of yourself safe, or you'd go mad with grief. This baby, a girl, we named her Margaret. She lived. She's alive today, 62 years old, married, has children of her own. She was the first one who survived past 5 years old. The first one I let myself believe might actually grow up. After Margaret came 3 more babies who died. Samuel in 1843 lived 3 months. Rebecca in 1845 lived 1 year. Thomas Jr. in 1847 lived 6 weeks. Every time I thought maybe this one would live. Maybe this one would be strong enough. And every time I was wrong. Every time I wrapped another tiny body, dug another tiny grave, said another set of prayers over another small coffin. By 1847, I'd had 9 children. 3 were alive, 6 were dead, more dead than living. That was my family. More children in the ground than sitting at my table. You'd think you'd get used to it. You'd think after the 2nd or 3rd or 4th one, it wouldn't hurt as much. But it did. Every single time it hurt. Every single time something broke inside you that never healed right. Then came the ones who lived. After Thomas Jr. died in 1847, I had 4 more children. John in 1849, he lived. Anne in 1851, she lived. Robert in 1853, he lived. Hannah in 1855, she lived. Those 4, plus Margaret, those were my survivors. 5 out of 13. 5 children who made it past age 5, who grew up, who became adults. The other 8, they're all buried in the churchyard. 8 small graves in a row. James, Mary, Elizabeth, William, Catherine, Samuel, Rebecca, Thomas Jr. I can recite their names like a prayer. I do recite them like a prayer, have for 60 years. Every night before I sleep, I say their names, remember them. Make sure they're not forgotten, because that's all I can do for them now. Remember that they existed. Remember that they mattered. Remember that they were mine. People ask me why so many children died back then. Why my generation lost so many babies. They want to understand it, make sense of it, find reasons. The truth is, there were 100 reasons, 1,000 reasons. Everything could kill a baby. Everything did kill babies. Fever killed them, cough killed them, the flux killed them, scarlet fever, whooping cough, measles, mumps, diphtheria. Winter killed them, summer killed them, something in their bellies killed them, something in their blood killed them. They just died. Sometimes you knew why, most times you didn't. They were fine in the morning and dead by night, and you never knew what took them. You just knew they were gone. The doctors didn't know what to do. We had doctors. People think we didn't, but we did. We had doctors. They just didn't know anything. Didn't know what caused diseases. Didn't know how to cure them. They'd come to your house when your baby was sick, and they'd look at the baby, and they'd say things that sounded smart but didn't mean anything. Bad humors, they'd say. Imbalance of the blood. Too much heat, too much cold, bad air. They'd bleed the baby sometimes, make tiny cuts and let the blood out. Said it would balance the humors. It didn't help. Made things worse sometimes. Other times they'd give you medicines, powders, and tinctures that tasted terrible and did nothing. Laudanum for pain, calomel for everything else. Poison, really. We were giving babies poison because the doctors said it would help. It didn't help. Nothing helped. The midwives knew more than the doctors, honestly. The old women who'd delivered babies for 40 years, 50 years, they knew things. Knew how to position a baby who was coming wrong. Knew how to stop bleeding after birth. Knew which herbs helped with fever, which ones helped with cough. But even they couldn't save most babies who got sick. Even they would just shake their heads and say, "It's in God's hands now. All we can do is pray." And we'd pray. Lord, how we'd pray. I prayed over every sick baby. Prayed so hard I thought God had to hear me, had to answer, had to save this one baby, this one child. But he didn't. They died anyway. All the prayers in the world didn't stop babies from dying. Didn't save my James or my Mary or my Elizabeth or any of them. They died, and I prayed, and God didn't answer. And that was just how it was. The biggest killer was fever, just fever. A baby would get hot, burning hot, and there was nothing you could do. You'd put cool cloths on their head, give them water if they'd drink it, rock them, sing to them, beg them to hold on. But the fever would just keep rising and rising until their little bodies couldn't take it anymore. Sometimes they'd have convulsions, their whole body shaking, eyes rolling back. That was the worst, watching that. Knowing you couldn't stop it, couldn't help them. Other times they'd just get quieter and quieter, weaker and weaker, until they slipped away. Both ways, you were helpless, completely helpless. You're the mother. You're supposed to protect your child, supposed to keep them safe, but you couldn't. You just had to watch them die, and there was nothing you could do. The second biggest killer was what we called the summer complaint. Babies would get it in the hot months, July, August. They'd start having the flux, couldn't keep anything in their bellies. They'd waste away in days, sometimes just 2 or 3 days from first symptoms to death. We didn't know what caused it. Now they tell me it was probably bad milk or bad water or something contaminated. Back then, we just knew that summer was dangerous for babies. You try to keep them cool, keep them fed, keep them clean. Didn't matter. The summer complaint took them anyway. My Rebecca died of it. Perfectly healthy one day, sick the next, dead 3 days later. 1 year old. I remember it was August. So hot. And she just burned up from the inside. Couldn't keep down water or milk or anything. Just wasted away until there was nothing left of her but skin and bones. We buried her on a Thursday. I remember because Thursday was baking day, and I had bread rising when she died, and I just left it there, left it to rise and fall and ruin, because what did bread matter when my baby was dead? Winter was almost as dangerous as summer. The cold months, November through March, those were the dying months. Babies would get coughs that turned into something worse. Pneumonia, probably, though we didn't always call it that. We called it the lung fever, the winter sickness, the killing cough. You'd hear them struggling to breathe. hear the rattle in their chest, and you knew. You just knew. Some babies fought it for weeks. My Mary coughed for 6 weeks before she died. 6 weeks of watching her get weaker, watching her little body struggle for every breath. 6 weeks of hoping she'd turn the corner, that she'd get better, that the cough would ease. It didn't ease. It got worse until she couldn't breathe at all. Other babies went faster. My William got sick on a Monday, was dead by Friday. 4 days. That was almost easier in a way. The quick deaths, less suffering for them, less time watching them fight and lose. We couldn't keep the houses warm enough in winter. People today, they have furnaces, central heating, warm houses all winter long. We had fireplaces, 1, maybe 2 fireplaces in the whole house. You'd keep the fire going day and night, burned through cords of wood, and the house would still be cold. Upstairs where the children slept, it was freezing. You'd pile blankets on them, put them in thick nightgowns, sometimes put 2 or 3 children in one bed so they could share warmth. Still cold. You'd wake up and there'd be frost on the inside of the windows. Your breath would make clouds. The babies would be shivering even under all the blankets. And when they got sick, the cold made it worse, made their bodies work harder just to stay warm when they needed all their strength to fight the sickness. I think the cold killed as many babies as the diseases did, just weakened them enough that they couldn't fight off whatever sickness came along. Then there was childbirth itself. Some babies died being born, came out wrong, feet first or sideways, and there was nothing anyone could do. The midwife would try to turn them, try to get them positioned right, but sometimes it didn't work. Sometimes the baby died in the birth canal. Sometimes the cord wrapped around their neck and strangled them before they could take their first breaths. My Catherine was like that, stillborn. The midwife said the cord was wrapped twice around her neck. She never had a chance, never took a single breath. I labored for 18 hours to birth a dead baby. Held her afterward, her perfect little body, still warm, but already gone. They took her away after a few minutes, said it wasn't good for me to hold her too long, but I wanted to hold her, wanted to memorize her face, her tiny hands, everything about her. She was my daughter, even if she never lived. She mattered, even if she never breathed. Some babies seemed weak from the start, born too small or too early, or just something wrong that you couldn't see but you could tell. They wouldn't nurse well, wouldn't cry much, wouldn't move around the way healthy babies did. Those ones, you knew they probably wouldn't make it. My Thomas Jr. was like that. Born in the winter, came early, so small he fit in one of my hands. He tried, he really tried, but he was just too weak, too small, lived 6 weeks, never got much bigger, never got stronger, just slowly faded until one morning he was gone. The midwife had told me when he was born that babies that small usually didn't survive, said I should prepare myself. But how do you prepare yourself for that? How do you prepare to lose a child? You can't, you just can't. And sometimes you never knew why they died. They were fine, healthy, growing, hitting all the milestones, and then one day they just weren't. You'd go to wake them for feeding, and they'd be dead. No fever, no sickness, no warning, just dead. That happened to my Elizabeth. 6 weeks old, perfectly healthy as far as I could tell. I fed her before bed. She nursed well, went to sleep in her cradle. I woke up in the morning to feed her again, and she was gone. Still warm, but not breathing. I picked her up, tried to wake her, called for Thomas, but she was gone. The doctor came, looked at her, said sometimes babies just die. Crib death, he called it. Said it happened sometimes, no one knew why. She's just dead, and you have to accept it and move on. That was the hardest one, I think, the not knowing. At least with the others, I could say fever took them, or the flux, or the cough. But Elizabeth, I'll never know why she died, never know what I could have done differently. She just died, and that was that. People think we didn't love our babies as much because so many died. I've heard people say that mothers back then didn't bond with their babies the way mothers do now because we expected them to die. That's not true. That's cruel, and it's not true. We love them. God, how we love them. Every single one. From the moment you felt them move inside you, you loved them. From the moment they were born and you held them and looked at their faces, you loved them. You'd love them even knowing they might die, even knowing you might bury them in a few months or a few years. You couldn't help but love them. They were yours, your babies, your children. How could you not love them? But the love was different, I suppose. Had to be different. You couldn't let yourself imagine their whole future the way mothers do now. Couldn't picture them as adults, getting married, having children of their own. You could only love them in the moment, love them as they were right then, that day, that hour, because tomorrow they might be gone. You learn to love them completely in the present and not think about the future, because thinking about the future hurt too much when the future probably included a grave. Does that make sense? You love them desperately, fiercely, completely, but you also held something back, protected some part of your heart because losing them was so common and so devastating that you'd go mad if you didn't protect yourself somehow. I remember the feeling of walking to the churchyard with a small coffin. Did it 8 times. 8 times I walked that path, following Thomas, who carried the coffin, so light, always lighter than it should be. 8 times I stood at a graveside and watched them lower my baby into the ground. 8 times I heard the minister say the same words. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. 8 times I wanted to scream at him that there was nothing blessed about it, nothing blessed about burying a baby, but I didn't scream. I just stood there, silent, because that's what you did. You were quiet and dignified, and you accepted it because everyone expected you to accept it, because fighting it, raging against it, wouldn't bring them back, wouldn't change anything. They were dead, and you had to bury them and move on because you had other children to take care of, other work to do. Life didn't stop just because a baby died. The other mothers understood. We didn't talk about it much, but we understood. You'd see each other at church, see the new graves in the churchyard, see the look in each other's eyes, and you knew. You knew that mother had just buried a child. You knew she was carrying the same weight you were carrying. Sometimes we'd touch hands, just a brief touch, an acknowledgement. I know, I understand, I'm sorry. That was all. We didn't gather and cry together, didn't share our stories and comfort each other. We just carried our grief privately, individually, and gave each other those small acknowledgments. I see you. I know what you've lost. I'm sorry. That was all we could do, all we were allowed to do. Grieving too openly was seen as lack of faith, questioning God's will. You were supposed to accept it with grace and resignation. Be sad, yes, but quietly, privately. Don't make others uncomfortable with your grief. I got pregnant 13 times in 20 years. 13 pregnancies, 8 dead babies, 5 living children. That was my life from age 20 to age 40. Always pregnant or nursing or burying a child. Always tired, always afraid, always waiting for the next death, because there was always a next death. Even after I had children who survived past 5, I never fully believed they were safe. Any of them could get sick. Any of them could die. My Margaret, my first survivor, she got scarlet fever when she was 8. I thought I'd lose her. Thought after 5 years of her living, she'd be taken anyway. I sat up with her for 3 nights, watching her burn with fever, praying she'd live. She did live, but I learned then that even the ones who survived early childhood weren't safe. They could still be taken. You were never safe. Your children were never safe. You just lived with that fear, that knowledge, every single day. The guilt was the worst part. The wondering if you'd done something wrong, if you could have saved them, if you'd been a better mother, more careful, more vigilant, would they have lived? I tortured myself with those questions. Still do sometimes, even now, even 60 years later. Should I have noticed James's fever sooner? Should I have called the doctor earlier for Mary's cough? Should I have fed Rebecca different food, kept her away from something that made her sick? Should I have kept the house warmer, cleaner, safer somehow? Was it my fault? Did I kill my babies through carelessness, through ignorance, through failure to protect them the way a mother should? The rational part of me knows it wasn't my fault, knows that babies died everywhere, in every family, no matter how careful the mother was. Rich families lost babies, poor families lost babies, clean houses, dirty houses, didn't matter. Babies died. That was just how it was. The medicine wasn't there yet. The knowledge wasn't there yet. Things that are simple now, easy to cure now, were death sentences then. We didn't know about germs, about bacteria, about sanitation, about any of it. We didn't know that boiling water made it safe. Didn't know that washing hands prevented disease. Didn't know anything that could have saved them. It wasn't my fault. I know that in my head. But in my heart I still wonder. Still feel like I failed them. Like a better mother would have kept them alive somehow. Other people added to the guilt, not intentionally most times, but they'd say things. You must have done something wrong for God to take so many of your children. Maybe you're being punished for some sin. Maybe you didn't pray hard enough. Maybe if you'd called the doctor sooner. Maybe if you'd kept the house cleaner. Always maybe, always implying that it was something I did or didn't do, something I could have controlled. That made it worse, that suggestion that I had power to save them and failed to use it. Because then it really was my fault. Then I really did kill them through my inadequacy, my failure, my sin. I'd lie awake at night searching my heart for what I'd done wrong. What sin had I committed that God was punishing me by taking my children? But I couldn't think of anything. I'd been a good wife, a good mother, a faithful Christian. I'd done everything right as far as I knew, but still, my babies died. Still, God took them. So maybe I wasn't as good as I thought. Maybe there was something wrong with me that I couldn't see. The living children helped, in a way. You had to keep going for them, had to get up, make breakfast, do the washing, tend the garden, all the daily work. You couldn't collapse in grief because there were living children who needed you, needed to be fed and clothed and cared for. So you buried your baby on Thursday, and on Friday you were back to your regular work because the work didn't stop. Life didn't stop. You still had a household to run, a husband to care for, children to raise. Your grief had to fit into the corners of your life, the moments when you were alone, the nights when everyone else was asleep. That's when you could cry. That's when you could let yourself feel the full weight of it. But during the day, you had to be strong, had to keep going, had to pretend everything was fine, even when you were breaking inside. Thomas grieved too, in his own way. Men didn't show it the same, didn't cry, at least not where anyone could see, didn't talk about it much, but I'd see it in his face sometimes, the sadness, the weight. He'd hold one of the living children and his eyes would get this distant look, and I knew he was thinking about the dead ones, thinking about James or William or Thomas Jr., the sons who didn't live to help him on the farm, didn't live to carry on the family name, didn't live at all. We'd stand at the graves together on Sundays after church, stand there in silence, and I knew he felt it too, the loss, the grief, the guilt, but we didn't talk about it, never talked about it with each other. What was there to say? They're dead. We're sad. We'll always be sad. Talking about it wouldn't change anything, wouldn't bring them back. So we just carried it silently, separately, together, but alone in our grief. The worst moments were when people forgot about them. The dead babies, I mean. People would ask how many children I had, and I'd never know what to say. Did they mean living children, or all the children I'd birthed? If I said 5, I was erasing the 8 who died, pretending they never existed. But if I said 13, I'd have to explain that 8 were dead, and then people would get uncomfortable, would say they were sorry, would change the subject quickly because death made people uncomfortable, especially baby death. So I learned to say five living children, and every time I said it, I felt like I was betraying the others, forgetting them, acting like they didn't matter. But what else could I do? I couldn't give their whole history every time someone asked a simple question. The living children never knew most of their siblings. Margaret was the oldest survivor, born in 1841. By the time she was old enough to remember things, 3 of her siblings were already dead. She never knew James or Mary or Elizabeth, never knew they existed until she was older and I told her. The others, the ones born after her, they grew up knowing they'd had siblings who died, but it was abstract to them. Names in the family Bible, small graves in the churchyard, not real people, not brothers and sisters they'd played with and lost. Just the idea of loss, the knowledge that babies died sometimes, that they'd been lucky to survive when others hadn't. I don't think they really understood what it meant to me. How could they? They were children. Death was just something that happened to other people's siblings, not something real and immediate and devastating. Sometimes I'd imagine what the dead ones would have been like if they'd lived. James would be 67 now. He'd probably have children, grandchildren maybe. What would he have been like? Would he have been a farmer like his father? Would he have been serious or light-hearted? Would he have had children of his own? I'll never know. Mary would be 66. Would she have been a quiet girl or a wild one? Who would she have married? What would her life have been? Elizabeth, William, Catherine, Samuel, Rebecca, Thomas Jr. What would any of them have been? I've spent 60 years wondering, 60 years imagining lives they never got to live. It's foolish, I know, pointless. They're dead. They never grew up. They never became anything. But I can't help it. Can't help wondering what I lost when I lost them. Not just babies. Whole lives, whole futures, whole people who never got to exist. The graves are still there in the churchyard, 8 small stones in a row. I visit them when I can, though my legs don't work as well as they used to. Harder to make the walk now that I'm old, but I go sometimes, stand there, read the names carved into the stone. James Miller, born February 1836, died May 1836. Mary Miller, born January 1837, died March 1839. Elizabeth Miller, born October 1838, died December 1838. William Miller, born June 1839, died October 1839. Catherine Miller, born March 1840, died March 1840. Samuel Miller, born November 1843, died February 1844. Rebecca Miller, born August 1845, died August 1846. Thomas Miller, Jr., born January 1847, died March 1847. 8 stones, 8 children, more than half my babies, all of them buried before they could really live. The churchyard is full of children's graves, hundreds of them, small stones with short date spans, born and died in the same year, sometimes the same month, sometimes the same week. Whole sections of the cemetery dedicated to infants and children, more children than adults in some parts. That tells you something about how we lived back then, about what was normal. Death was everywhere. Child death was everywhere. You couldn't escape it, couldn't protect your children from it. You just had children and hoped some would survive and accepted that some wouldn't. That was parenthood, that was motherhood. Bringing children into the world knowing you'd probably bury at least half of them. And you did it anyway, because what choice did you have? You needed children, wanted children. So you had them and lost them and had more and lost more and kept going because that was all you could do. I got pregnant 13 times in 20 years. 13 pregnancies, 8 dead babies, 5 living children. That was my life from age 20 to age 40. Always pregnant or nursing or burying a child, always tired, always afraid, always waiting for the next death, because there was always a next death. Even after I had children who survived past 5, I never fully believed they were safe. Any of them could get sick. Any of them could die. My Margaret, my first survivor, she got scarlet fever when she was 8. I thought I'd lose her. Thought after 5 years of her living, she'd be taken anyway. I sat up with her for 3 nights, watching her burn with fever, praying she'd live. She did live. But I learned then that even the ones who survived early childhood weren't safe. They could still be taken. You were never safe. Your children were never safe. You just lived with that fear, that knowledge, every single day. The ones who survived, my 5 living children, they grew up, got married, had children of their own. And I watched them go through the same thing, watched them lose babies. My Margaret, she had 8 children, lost 3 before they turned 5. My John, he had 6 children, lost 2. Anne had 7, lost 4. Robert had 5, lost 1. Hannah had 9, lost 3. All told, my living children had 35 children between them, and they lost 13. 13 grandchildren of mine who died as babies or small children. I watched my daughters and daughters-in-law go through what I went through, saw the same pain in their faces, the same fear, the same guilt, the same grief, and I couldn't help them. Couldn't save their babies any more than I could save my own. Just had to watch them suffer the same way I suffered. It's a little better for them, I suppose. Medicine has improved some since I was young. Doctors know a bit more, though not much. Fewer babies die now than did when I was having children, but still too many, still way too many. My granddaughter lost a baby last year, just last year, 1902, and babies are still dying of fevers and coughs and things that should be preventable, things that should be curable. She was devastated, my granddaughter, felt like it was her fault, same as I felt, same as every mother feels when her baby dies. I held her while she cried, and I told her it wasn't her fault, told her she did everything she could, told her sometimes babies just die and there's nothing anyone can do. But I don't think she believed me. How could she? I didn't believe it when people told me the same thing 60 years ago. The fear never goes away. Even now, even with my children grown and old themselves, I still worry, still fear getting news that one of them is sick. They're in their 50s and 60s now, my living children, adults. But to me, they're still my babies, the ones who survived when so many didn't, the ones I get to keep. And I'm terrified of losing them. Terrified that after surviving childhood, surviving all those diseases that killed their siblings, they'll be taken from me anyway. My John has consumption, has had it for 2 years. He's getting weaker. I can see it. And I think about how he survived when William didn't, when Thomas Jr. didn't. He made it to adulthood, made it to 54 years old. And now he might die anyway. And I'll bury another child, another son. Even though he's a grown man with children and grandchildren of his own, he's still my baby, still my boy, and I don't want to bury him. People tell me I should be grateful. I had 13 children and 5 survived. That's better than many families, better than my mother who had 9 children and only 5 survived, better than so many women who had 10, 12, 15 children and only 1 or 2 lived to adulthood. I should be grateful for the ones who lived. I should focus on that, not on the ones who died. And I am grateful. I am. I love my living children more than anything. Love my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I'm so grateful I got to watch some of my children grow up, get married, have families. So many mothers never got that. So many mothers buried all their children. At least I have some who lived. At least I wasn't left with no one. But gratitude doesn't erase grief. Being glad for the ones who lived doesn't mean you stop mourning the ones who died. I carry both, gratitude and grief, joy for the survivors and sorrow for the lost. They exist together, always have, always will. When I look at my living children, I'm happy they're here. But I also see the spaces where the dead ones should be, see the missing faces at the table, the missing voices, the missing lives. 8 children who should be here and aren't. 8 people who never got to exist beyond infancy. How can I not grieve that? How can I not feel that loss every single day, even 60 years later, even 70 years later for James? The grief doesn't go away. You just learn to carry it, learn to live with it, learn to be happy in spite of it, but it never goes away. If I could tell young mothers today anything, it would be this. You don't know how lucky you are. You have medicine that works. You have doctors who know things. You have hospitals with equipment and knowledge and treatments that actually save babies. You have vaccines that prevent the diseases that killed so many of my children. Scarlet fever, diphtheria, whooping cough, measles, all the things that took babies. You can prevent them now. You can save children that would have died in my day. Do you understand what a miracle that is? Do you understand what I would have given for that? For a way to save my babies, for knowledge, for medicine, for anything that could have prevented their deaths. Your children will probably live, all of them. That's normal now. Having all your children survive to adulthood, that's expected. But in my day, it was rare, remarkable, something to be grateful for because it was so unusual. You take it for granted that your children will live. You assume they'll grow up. You plan their futures. Imagine them as adults. Think about who they'll become. We couldn't do that. We didn't dare, because planning a future for a baby was just setting yourself up for heartbreak when that baby died at 6 months or a year or 2 years. But you mothers today, you can plan, you can assume, you can expect your children to live, and most of them do. Most of them survive. Do you know how precious that is? Do you understand what a gift that is? Don't waste it. Don't take it for granted. When your child has a fever and you take them to the doctor and the doctor gives them medicine and they get better, be grateful. Be so grateful, because my children had fevers and there was no medicine that helped and they died. When your child gets a vaccination and doesn't get sick with the disease it prevents, be grateful. My children got those diseases and died from them. When your child grows up, gets married, has children of their own, be grateful. So grateful. Half my children never got to do any of that, never got to grow up, never got to become people, never got to have lives. Your children get to do all of that. They get to live. Don't waste a single moment of it. I think about what my life would have been like if all 13 of my children had survived, if we'd had the medicine then that you have now, if James's fever had been treatable, if Mary's cough had been curable, if all 8 of the ones who died had lived. I'd have 13 adult children now, 13 families, dozens of grandchildren, dozens of great-grandchildren. The table at Christmas would be enormous. The house would be full of people, full of noise, full of life. Instead, I have 5 children, smaller families, quieter gatherings, and 8 graves, 8 stones in the churchyard, 8 empty spaces. That's the difference between my time and yours, between what was normal then and what's normal now. You get to keep your children. We didn't. But here's what I learned from losing so many children. Love them while you have them, every day, every moment. Don't wait for special occasions. Don't save the good china or the nice clothes for later. Don't put off telling them you love them, showing them you love them, because you don't know how much time you have. We knew that more keenly than you do because our children died so frequently. But it's still true for you. You still don't know how much time you have. No one does. So love them now. Hold them now. Tell them now. Make memories now. Don't waste a single day thinking you'll have more time later. You might, but you might not. And if you don't, you'll regret every moment you wasted, every moment you were too busy or too tired or too distracted to really be with them. I didn't waste moments with my children, even the ones who died. I loved them fully while I had them. I have no regrets about that. My only regret is that I didn't get more time, that's all. I wanted more time with them, but I loved them completely in the time I had. Make sure you can say the same. I'm 87 years old. I've lived through almost 90 years of change, seen the world transform, seen medicine improve, though not fast enough. not soon enough to save my babies. Seen families get smaller because fewer children die, so you don't need to have as many to ensure some survive. Seen mothers who have 3 children and all 3 live to adulthood, something that was rare in my youth. Seen progress, real progress, and I'm glad for it. Glad that fewer mothers have to bury their babies now. Glad that fewer children die. Glad that the world has changed in that way. But it doesn't change what happened to me. Doesn't bring back my 8 children. Doesn't undo 60 years of grief. The progress came too late for them, too late for me. I'll die soon. I know that. I'm old, I'm tired, my body is worn out. And when I die, I wonder if I'll see them again. My babies, the ones who died. I was raised to believe in heaven, to believe that death isn't the end, that we'll all be reunited in paradise. I want to believe that. Want to believe I'll see James again, and Mary, and Elizabeth, and all the others. Want to believe they've been waiting for me all these years, that they're still my babies, that they'll know me, that we'll finally have the time we never got to have on earth. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true or if it's just something we tell ourselves to make death less frightening, to make loss more bearable. I don't know if there's anything after this, and that terrifies me, because if there's nothing, then they're just gone, just erased, and I'll never see them again, never hold them again. They'll just be bones in the ground and memories in my head and nothing more. The living children will bury me next to Thomas when I die. He died 10 years ago. I've been alone since then. The children visit, bring the grandchildren, keep me company, but it's not the same. I miss Thomas, miss having someone who shared the grief, who understood the weight of losing so many children. The children try to understand, but they can't. Not really. They didn't bury their siblings, didn't watch baby after baby die. They know it happened, know I lost 8 children, but it's history to them. Ancient history, something sad that happened a long time ago, not something real and present and painful. Only Thomas really understood. Only he carried the same grief I carried, and now he's gone too. When they bury me, I'll be in the family plot, Thomas on one side, and on the other side, those 8 small graves, my babies, James, Mary, Elizabeth, William, Catherine, Samuel, Rebecca, Thomas Jr. I'll be with them finally, with all of them. The living children have their own families, their own plots, their own futures, but I'll be with the ones who died, the ones who never got to grow up, never got to have their own families, never got to have futures. I'll spend eternity next to their graves, and maybe that's fitting, maybe that's right. I spent most of my life grieving them. Maybe I should spend eternity with them, close to them in death in a way I couldn't keep them close in life. This is what I want people to understand. This is why I'm telling this story, because people today don't know what it was like, don't understand that for most of human history, losing children was normal, expected, something every mother went through. You had 10 children and buried 5, and that was just how things were. You didn't have the luxury of assuming your children would survive. You hoped they would, prayed they would, did everything you could to keep them alive. But you knew that probably some of them would die, and they did, and you buried them, and you kept going, because what else could you do? You couldn't stop being a mother to the living ones just because you'd lost the dead ones. You couldn't collapse in grief. You had to keep going, keep working, keep living, keep having more babies because you needed children. So that's what we did. We buried our babies and cried our tears and kept going. That was motherhood. That was life. And it broke us in ways we never fully recovered from. I've carried the weight of those 8 deaths for 60, 70 years, carried them every single day, still carry them, will carry them until I die. That's what it meant to be a mother in my time, to love children desperately and lose them frequently, and somehow survive the grief and keep going. I did survive. I kept going, but I never stopped grieving, never stopped missing them, never stopped wishing things had been different. That's my legacy. 5 living children who became adults, 8 dead babies who never got the chance, and a lifetime of grief for what was lost. That's the truth about why so many children died, not just the diseases and the lack of medicine and the harsh conditions, but the human cost, the mothers who buried baby after baby, the families torn apart by death, the grief that never ended. That's what people don't understand. That's what I need them to know. The children who died mattered. The mothers who lost them suffered, and we carried that suffering for the rest of our lives. We never got over it. We just learned to live with it. And now I'm old and I'm dying and I still carry it. Still think about them every day. Still miss them. Still wish they'd lived. That's what it meant to lose so many children. It meant living with grief forever. And we did. All of us mothers back then. We lived with it and we survived. But we were never the same.